Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This Manga show we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Yu Hakusho Season 1, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we have Yusuke trying to go after Hiei because because obviously Hiei is going after, what was his name? Tarukane? The mobster dude that has Kurime. And Yusuke obviously doesn't go too badly, but he's severely outclassed by Hiei because Hiei is too fast and he can't keep up. Can't even pull off a spirit gun in time to deal with him. Which this episode also, once again, I brought it up last episode. I was curious would get any clarification this episode. No, it does seem like they are leaning with the whole, like, they're not doing the whole, at this point in the story, he can only do one spirit gun a single day. Like, seems like they're kind of removing that. They're just playing, I don't know if fast and loose is with, like, the necessary term, but, like, I don't know if he has, like, necessarily unlimited. I'm sure, like, if he burns out spiritual energy wise, because that was just, I think that's just what it naturally comes down to. A single spirit gun would sap all the reserves he has of spiritual energy. I think that's how that worked. I don't know if they ever got into the nitty gritty, but I just thought that was such an interesting thing. Like, that wasn't a point last episode at all. To be fair, he didn't have to use the spirit gun in, like, the back half of the episode, but he's only been in a situation where he's fired the spirit gun once a day. But I mean, even arguably, like, near the end of this episode, he fires it what I would consider a second time in it. I would assume that's the same day, but it could easily have just been a different day. So we've still only seen him shoot like maybe one a day. So, but either way, because he couldn't really do it against Hiei, and I love Botan is very in a very terrible way trying to make him feel better, but he's like, the only reason why I'm feeling bad is because you're making me depressed. And she and Koima suggests that he goes off and train with Genkai, and I'm like, wait, this early? I was like, no, that definitely didn't happen. Did it? I was like, there's no way he trained with Genkai before the Hiei situation was done with. Even the Toguro situation, I'm like, that was dealt with before because I was like, wasn't him training with Genkai like set up for the Dark Tournament? I was like, did he train for a little bit and then train for more dirt prior to the Dark Tournament? I was like, is that how that went? Because I only remember him training with Genkai once, but maybe I'm just not remembering correctly. Because I remember Kuwabara training with her too, but I feel like that was post Hiei and everything. I don't know if it was before. I feel like it was after Toguro, but maybe it was pre Toguro and post. I was always treated as post Toguro. Like, I thought it was full on lead up to the Dark Tournament, but I had no idea. When it's all said and done, though, he goes to train and Kuwabara tags along because he wants to get stronger as well. So they both get kind of put through their paces training-wise. Yusuke has to hold a pose for hours on end, using, like, channeling his spiritual energy to stay, like, almost like a handstand almost, but just with a single finger. Then you have Kuwabara using wooden swords to try and break through a stone. Obviously, Yusuke's frustrated with his own, like, he just needs to get stronger faster. I think there's the delinquent in him that just doesn't want to lose. So he's like, right, I gotta get Hiei. He kind of outclassed me. It's like, no, because, like, he brute forced his way through the fight with Goki. Then also with the roundworm in the first episode. So he scraped by in a lot of those situations. But there's no scraping by in this situation. Just Hiei straight up outclasses him in every way. So, and the frustrations with that, he goes up against Genkai, who, like, easily stuns him in regards of, like, putting him in his place. He can't really do anything. I mean, it's the shame that she's literally throwing, like, peanuts at you and knocking you down, even at one point in a very comical way, get you literally slipping on him like you're in a cartoon or something. But it does show Yusuke's instincts in that battle where, like, Genkai just used a technique on him, and then, like, a few seconds later he replicates it. The whole, like, when he kind of gets kicked and he kind of twirls his body and kind of does like a roundhouse kick midair, and there was a little spirit energy connected with. She was like, wow, you copied it in an instance after only seeing it one time. Shows he's got the raw talent and ability for it, but he's not refined enough. So, because for her, she's trying to figure out why he's doing all this. His justification is like, right, I'm kind of almost contractually obligated because I was brought back to life, so I kind of have to do whatever Koima says. But Genkai's like, at the end of the day, Koima's not going to kill you again if you decide to not be a spirit detective. It's not like anything can really happen on that front. So like that's a flimsy reason to stick around. So why are you doing this? You're coming at this situation so half-heartedly. You're not putting your all into it. But look at Kuwabara. Kuwabara's got the grit. He's putting everything he's into it. Like the entire day he's spending chopping away at the rock with these wooden swords and breaking one after another. And for him, what he's fighting for is like, I want to be strong enough to protect that which is important to me. In this case, it's like he failed to protect his friends. And it's like, right, that's because I was weak. And Yusuke had to be the one to come and save the day. And it's like, that rubs him the wrong way. So he ends up channeling his spiritual energy through the sword and ends up slashing through the rock. Which, do correct me if I'm wrong, I'm like, wasn't Kuwabara's blade? I noticed this in the trailer. You see it a little bit in the teaser trailer. But I was like, isn't Kuwabara's blade red? Or is that like a Mandela effect? It's like, because I know that changes a little bit later on, because like there's different versions. I remember a later arc he uses a different sword, but I'm like, wasn't it always red energy? Maybe it was, like I said, maybe it was always blue energy, and I'm just like, it's just a Mandela effect if I don't remember that, but I could have sworn it was red. I don't remember it being blue. But for Yusuke, that ended up being the inspiration he needed, because he says, like, right, I wonder, did he overhear Kuwabara's reasons for it? Which, I mean, kind of plays a little bit into Yusuke, too, because for Kuwabara, it is a situation, I mean, for Yusuke, it's like, right, I want to show him up. The fact is, I'm not going to let that bastard get so far ahead of me, which even Genkai tried to use that as motivation against him, but this is what really motivated him, and he did his thing. It almost... I don't remember if Yusuke has this situation. The conversation with Genkai makes it almost seem like he's kind of got a Naruto thing. Like he has it seems like, because Naruto's thing is like, naturally Naruto has like a massive reserve of chakra. Now even just aside from like the nine tails, like he has like a massive amount of reserve of chakra. He just also has another reserve, that being the nine tails. But because of that, there's always a portion of his chakra that was sealed away to keep the nine tails away. But I was wondering if like Yusuke kind of has a similar thing, because Genkai was like, you're basically like a hose that's always open, pouring out water. So in that moment, he ends up doing a spirit gun, putting everything into it. It's like, right, you can pinch off a little bit of that and use it, but I think it's just you're constantly leaking out spiritual energy, because you're not closing the tap, you're not using it properly. But if you pinch off a little bit at a time, but this one, it's like, she's like, no, go full throttle, like let loose everything. And this is the one you see at the end of the teaser trailer. Once again, just like when you see like how they animate it, or like the effect for it in live action looks, once again, so much like Naruto. Like, well, I can't just say Naruto's, but I mean the techniques pretty much become Naruto's at this point, the Rasengan. Even though other people like Kakashi can do it, and obviously his son Boruto could do it, but that's understandable. But Naruto made that technique his own. But it looks so much, especially with the coloring and everything. Makes me wonder, was the Rasengan ever inspired by the Spirit God? But either way, Yusuke fires it, and it's like I actually love the scale of just like looking at it, almost looking like a shooting star, like flying off into the sky, like the way it kind of pierces through the air like that. But because I know he learned some other stuff with Genkai, but that's where I go back to like the whole, because I know the Spirit Gun stuff gets expanded upon. Like he, it forms other techniques around it, but that's why I was like, I know that's Dark Tournament stuff, and I was like, that's why I'm like, I don't know if they're blending stuff together with Genkai, or whether it was two separate training arcs, and I just don't remember the first one. Maybe I only remember the one that was the lead up to the Dark Tournament, maybe, because I don't think we got to see that, because I think it was like a month or two time skip, and then the Dark Tournament happened, and that just like all happened off screen. But I do feel like I remember there being an on-screen training arc. Like, even the whole, like, him... I don't remember. That's why I'm like, I can't remember if that was, like, a twofer, and I'm just, like, my memory's just that got off with that. It was, like... Because I do distinctly feel like I remember you do skip some of Yusuke's training, and then you catch up with him, like, after some time, like, right before the Dark Tournament arc happens, everyone gathers up again. But I do distinctly feel like I distinctly remember the whole training where he has to be on top of, like, a point and holding himself up with his spirit energy, like I said, a headstand, but, like, just a fingertip type of situation, a balancing act thing, so. But Genkai had this conversation with Yusuke about, right, don't be so willing to sacrifice something for power, because that's not strength, that's weakness, and that weakness of the heart. And she'd even asked Yusuke, I forgot the exact wording, but she'd asked Yusuke something, and Yusuke's response was, if you had asked me before all of this, I would have a different answer. But now that I realize how important I am to other people, and so I'm not going to betray that trust. So I'm going to fight tooth and nail for them. I'm never going to betray the trust. That includes people like Kuwabara, his mom, and Keiko. I think that would probably also slightly, not all the way, but slightly include Botan, but I don't think it include Koenma. But either way, she was sending them away because she knew that Toguro was on his way. Because the question then becomes like, because I feel like I remember them having a connection. I don't remember the exact details of it. We see that picture of a young Genkai and him, and obviously he hasn't aged. She made a whole conversation point about how he sold his soul. So I guess like he was a human that sold his soul to become a demon, sold his soul for power. So when she was talking to Yusuke, Yusuke's the example of who Toguro could have been if he didn't go down the dark side path, essentially. So because that's what also confused me about the Genkai thing, because I'm like, that whole thing between her and Toguro, I was like, doesn't that go down much later? Like I said, I don't remember, because that's why I'm also getting that territory of like anyone that's coming across this who doesn't never watch anime. I don't want to spoil certain story beats, but I'm like, that's why I'm like, I mean, by saying this, it's a spoiler, but I'm like, I don't think Genkai is dead. Might be, but I'd assume she's not. Especially because we didn't get to see her, like, well, for one, go all out. We didn't actually get to see the fight. Toguro just kind of took care of that off screen. But, like, when she kind of goes all out, a certain thing happens to her that we didn't get to witness in the show. So that's why I'm like, there's no, like, she's probably out of commission for a bit, but she's not actually dead. I think it's interesting that Toguro like went to visit her now out of any time, because the moment he's like felt that presence of the spirit gun like fired into the air, when he felt that power, because he had told Sakyo that he wants to go back to the demon world because there's no one in the human world that really matches him. So I guess he felt like, oh, because I guess I don't know how long. Well, the way Genkai and him talk about it seemed like they haven't seen each other in 50 years. So I guess like Genkai had been keeping a low profile until, like, I guess that made him go like, oh, so you're being active again. Let me go check on you, And did they just not interact? Like, Togaro's probably been here in the human world the entire time. Like, has he ever been to the demon world? The fact is he wants to go there because there's no one strong enough to give him a challenge here. So I guess I don't remember Togaro's motivations fully, and once again, his connection, him and Genkai's past, I don't really remember that at all. Because she kind of had a feeling like she wasn't going to make it out of this. That's why she had that final speech with Yusuke, and she sent Kuwabara and him off, even though they're like, right, we'll come back and do some more training later. And she was kind of sad because, she was like, yeah, I might not be here when you do that, but didn't want to worry them because didn't want to take the chance that they might stick around and fight a fight that they're not ready for. Because she had said, like, right, you'll get stronger, you'll be more a better strategist, but, eventually there will be a time you come across, like, such overwhelming power, and it's like you'll kind of submit to it, and it's like that, and she's like, I think that's okay. Circling back to Toguro really quickly, I'd actually forgotten about, like, I remember some of the transformation stuff, but I forgot his whole circumstance of how much power he's using. He's like, okay, like, he goes up against that yokai, and he's like, okay, 30% should do, and he bulks up his body. I was like, right, I forgot that's your shtick about that. I completely forgot. I remember what your transformations look like, but I forgot about the percentage thing of how much power you're using. It kind of reminds me of, if you've ever seen, just another anime reference, well, it's a light novel and a manga and an anime, but it's called Is This a Zombie? Koriwa Zombie Des. And it's basically the main character, Ayumu, is a zombie, and he kind of does a percentage thing of like, all right, I'm gonna hit with this punch with like 300%. His body can like compensate for that because he's a zombie and has like a massive, like, powerful, like, healing factor. It kind of reminds me of that with just the percentages. That's all that kind of crossed my mind. Pretty brutal when he just like took 30% and exploded that yokai. but they were kind of betting on it. Like, oh, really? That's like, I guess like all the money was on Toguro regardless. But it's like, yeah, he's being set up as security guard. It's like, yeah, that's a pretty good security for was it Taru Kane? And it felt so bad for the guy who didn't talk about it last episode, but the guy that wanted to rescue Korime, he tried to leave with her, but the small guy was waiting. Completely forgot he was Toguro's brother. Completely forgot. Even forgot about his shapeshifting ability until like later on when Yusuke was chasing after Hiei. I was like, oh right, it's like right because it's like Keiko wasn't there with Hiei. I was like, oh right. I was like, Toguro's brother, isn't it? He's the shape. I mean, it makes sense. We saw his power. It's like he can shapeshift his body and use it as a weapon, so it shouldn't be too much of a stretch to believe. Because I feel like I don't remember him utilizing that a lot. Maybe. I feel like I don't remember that getting used too much, the shapeshifting ability. But once again, just so much I don't remember. But yeah, poor guy. He was trying to rescue her because he's like, oh, I have a sister of my own and you remind me of her. Poor guy got killed. I feel like the little brother, I actually don't remember. Isn't he actually the older sibling? Isn't Toguro the younger sibling? I actually don't remember now. I think the little guy might actually be the big sibling if I remember correctly, but I could be completely wrong on that. Because it feels like it could be one of those things of like, yeah, he's on the smaller side, but he's actually the older brother. Whereas like Toguro, who's on the massive side, is actually the younger brother. It feels like it could be that, but I could be mistaken again. But he's more of a sociopath than I feel like Toguro is. Like Togoro's like focused about power and everything like that. His brother's the one that's like a complete another sociopath. He kind of gets off on that shit. But yeah, Sakyo he's got this membership group of people who are aware of the yokai, where they were even betting on some of the yokai fights, because he needs the money to do what he needs to do in that hole, like open and punch open a hole to the demon world. Which even Toguro was like, yeah, do whatever you need to. I'm gonna be a part of your endeavor because it benefits me. Because what you're trying to get out of this, I'm also getting something out of it too. So I'm gonna side with you. So I'm not gonna judge you one way or another about it because it benefits me. You doing what you're doing. But he's going to need more money and resources to make that happen. Like the power and resources they need to like punch open a hole between the human world and the demon world. One that's bigger than like a fist. Because they can currently do one that's the size of a fist, but not a massive enough that anyone could like properly utilize. Kurama did show up at one point to try and talk to Hiei about handing the blade over to Yusuke, which I'm like, what? I'm trying to figure. I mean, maybe Kurama was hoping it could help Yusuke get stronger or something. But I was like, why would Kurama want? Well, he wants Yusuke to have the blade just so it's like, well, you don't need it anymore, so let's help out Yusuke. I mean, to be fair, he owes Yusuke because it's like, yeah, you gave half of your life force to make sure my mom survived, so I'm gonna do you a favor. That way, you don't actually have to go toe to toe with Hiei. I like both of you, and I don't want both of you potentially killing each other. So yeah, let's handle this in a very diplomatic way of just hand me the blade. Because I was thinking he was trying to give it to Yusuke because Yusuke could use it, but it's like, no, he knows Yusuke needs the items. He's got 2 out of 3, so just give him the blade in a very diplomatic way. Like everyone kind of wins. Like Hiei kind of gets doing what he wants to do. Yusuke gets the item back, so there's less confrontation needed. I think maybe that's what Kurama was kind of aiming for, playing, like I said, the diplomat in that regard. But Hiei was kind of no, because I think it's just for the purposes of like, I think it was more of just a straight up, screw him, just a middle finger to Yusuke just because. But yeah, Toguro's brother ends up kidnapping Keiko just to get stuff started between him and Hiei, just for a little fun. Luckily, Kurama shows up in time to stop that, but even Hiei was kind of taken aback by Yusuke holding his own, which I'm like, once again, I don't believe those are the circumstances that brought them. Like, they are unified before they go against Toguro and them, sure, but I believe, if I remember correctly, he fights and beats Hiei, and then it's like, right, it's kind of like the Goku and Vegeta thing of like, it's like, right, I beat you before. I mean, even though, like, yes, Kuwabara and Yusuke would be the closer relationship because that's the rival of it all, even though Yusuke's like, wait, who's the rival of who now? But like Hiei got beaten first, and then eventually he joins up with Yusuke and them during this like going up against Toguro thing. But because I was even about to say, I'm like, yeah, because like Yusuke doesn't properly fight. Like there's a proper fight here, but even then it's not like you saw Hiei fully going all out. And it was more of a like Hiei kind of went all out against Yusuke and still lost type of situation, if I'm remembering correctly. Because I was like, didn't he? Wasn't just the third eye thing? Didn't he transform into a more demonic form? It's kind of like it's not a 1-to-1, but like kind of similar to how Sasuke and Naruto had like the cursed form. Like I could have sworn he had like it wasn't an exact match for that, but I think didn't his skin tone change kind of a similar color? Or am I conflating that with something else? Maybe Hiei didn't transform at all. I thought he did. I besides just the third eye thing, I thought he transformed his body into something else. But yeah, Yusuke was still handling his own against Hiei. Pretty impressive getting off a spirit gun mid-air. And even Hiei probably knows, like, yeah, that probably would have been a problem if that hit directly. So Kurama is the one that does come in clutch, though. He had already said, like, oh, I can gather some information about your sister, but Hiei kind of didn't accept that. But he shows up later on being like, yeah, someone else took Keiko and also took Hiei's sister, so let's all work together. Obviously, we're leading into a trap, but Yusuke's like, I don't care. We both have someone important to us that's mixed up in all this. And obviously, Kurama's going to go along because it's like, yeah, I kind of owe you, Yusuke. So, and I also, I'm on good enough terms with Hiei that, yeah, I'm tied in with both of you enough to be like, yeah, I've got your backs during a situation where you want to go after the people you care about that were taken from you. And obviously, Kuwabara tags along because he got told by Botan, like, oh, Keiko was a kidnapped. So, our trio becomes a quartet, and they're being led to the island where this is all going to go down, which is interesting too. Well, because we saw some of the other muscle that was introduced. It's like 4 people in total. I think that includes Toguro and his brother. That might not include his brother. It might be 5 in total. I feel like I remember some of those fights, but not all of it. I'm also curious to see how they handle the Kuwabara. Are they going to be true to, like, at least the anime? How he channels his sword. We'll see next episode whether or not they do it. If they don't, I'll talk about it more there. But if you're familiar with Kuwabara's circumstances of when he first obtained his power, like how, I mean, we get an instance of it in this episode. It's like, right, does that continue? Or do they go straight for, like, the advanced stages of it that he gets a little bit later on after training? It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Because we are condensing a lot in and moving pretty quickly through the story, so I'm curious if that's a detail they're even going to bother with, much like Yusuke's spirit gun only being fired once a day type of thing. It's definitely going to be ultimately interesting to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.